This is a brief overview of some of the artists I've discussed throughout the semester and a few of the terms relating to each of these artists that I would like for you to take with you by the end of the semester. Starting off, our first artist was Paul Cézanne, a French post-impressionist, and here we have a couple of examples: the still life with teapot and the House of Provence. So I'd like for you to familiarize yourself with those paintings and realize that they are by the artist Paul Cézanne. The next artist we spoke about was Caravaggio, and Caravaggio is credited with developing a very dynamic, high contrast style of painting with extreme darks and lights. We refer to this type of an effect as chiaroscuro. Now, just the opposite of this effect is another term, sfumato, and we credit the Italian Renaissance artist Leonardo da Vinci with developing this technique. And the example I'm going to show you here is the most expensive painting ever purchased. It's called the Salvator Mundi, and you'll notice that the edges are soft and the rather atmospheric effect in play. Now, keep in mind that a painting can have a chiaroscuro as well as sfumato effect at the same time, such as the example I'm showing you here. Now here we have a simple basket of fruit still life by Caravaggio, and up until the point of this painting, most still lifes were included in genre paintings where human figures were also present. This is a standalone still life and seems to be the first one recorded within the history of Western art. Now you also might note that this painting is rendered in a very hyper-realistic mode. We often refer to this style of painting as trompe-l'oeil, which is a French term meaning fool the eye. Our next artist that we introduced was Diego Velázquez, and he was a 17th century Spanish artist who painted for the king. His masterpiece, shown here, titled Las Meninas, means maid of honor, and in it he breaks the picture plane so that the viewer becomes a part of the scene itself. Now in this case, he's painting a portrait of the king and queen whose reflection is in the mirror on the back wall. Yet it's actually a portrait of the princess and her entourage, as well as a self-portrait of Velázquez himself. There's another very innovative work known as The Spinners. And just as in Las Meninas, it is a stop-action piece. Here he attempts to show the motion of the spinning wheel as if the moment has been frozen in time. Moving on now, we're going to talk a little bit about Impressionism and some of the artists involved in this movement, such as George Seurat, who developed a technique called pointillism, where the paint is applied in small dots, and the attempt is to mimic the simplification of color as it occurs naturally. The term Impressionism was coined by a local art critic in Paris after reviewing a show by the Impressionists, whereupon he mentioned that Claude Monet's painting of a sunset was not a natural painted sunset, but only an impression of a sunset. And from thence on, the term stuck and referred to this new style of painting. Another leading artist of the Impressionist movement was Pierre-Auguste Renoir. Renoir was known for fantastic brushwork as well as an unparalleled sensitivity to color. Next up are the two giants of modern painting from the 20th century, Henri Matisse and Pablo Picasso. In this painting, you'll notice that Matisse has pushed the envelope to the limits with regard to color. He was regarded as the leader of a movement known as the Fauves, interpreted literally as the wild beasts. Later in his career, he continues to simplify his forms and focus on color and color relationships. Here in this image, he is reacting to jazz music. We now come to one of the most famous paintings in the history of modern art, Les Demoiselles d'Avignon by Pablo Picasso. Painted in 1907, this painting was a breakthrough with regard to the forward movement and progressive movement of art. This was the beginning of a new form of art known as Cubism. We now come to perhaps the greatest painting of the 20th century, in my opinion, is known as Guernica. This was painted by Pablo Picasso in 1937, and as a reaction to the brutality of the Spanish Civil War that was being waged in his homeland in Spain. It is the ultimate of a protest painting of the horrors of war. And even today, it is ambiguous yet relevant within the language of art and the influence of art upon our society. Notice this painting has been rendered in a grayscale. We refer to this style of painting as grisaille. I hope you've enjoyed this little video, and on one final note, I'd like to encourage you to keep painting.